This is Growing Your Firm, the podcast for ambitious accountants and firm owners who want to work smarter, grow faster, and lead better. I'm your host, David Costello. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, Dave Costello here, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow and host of Growing Your Firm podcast. Today's guest is Douglas Slaybaugh. He makes busy season easier. He makes promotion and performance easier. He makes the decision to stay or leave a firm easier. He's the founder of CPA Coach, a platform for coaching CPA, CFOs, and accounting executives to influence a better accounting experience. Doug, I will say, I don't think I've come across a CPA coach. And so I'm really excited to unpack how you help people make decisions, how you help them navigate this world of kind of navigating between firms. But all that to say, first off, Doug, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. And to answer your question, I woke up one morning and I said, who would be the toughest audience to coach in the world? And what would make my job hardest? And so I said, coach CPAs. That's the obvious answer. And what market is the hardest to sell into? Oh, I know. CPAs. who is it hardest to build trust with? CPAs. So yeah, I didn't pick the easy one.
Yes, there you go. Well, we have that in common. Well, I'm curious,
right?
Going back in your journey, help me understand what was your path from CPA to professional coach? What was the inflection point that said enough's enough and you wanted to go into coaching?
So I was a total screw up in public accounting. Like my internship, I almost got fired from Arthur Andersen because I was driving from Boulder, which is way north, to way south Denver, which is like an hour long. And I was living in the house with like 5 other guys. And so we would have a lot of late nights. And to make it to my internship on time, I'd have to leave at an ungodly hour. And so I was late all the time and I almost got fired. But I had some people that liked me for whatever reason. I didn't have the beard then, so they liked me for other reasons. And they kind of stood up for me and they advocated for me and they allowed me to get a full-time position at Andersen. And throughout my career, there have been moments like that where I've screwed up and someone kind of stepped in to either mentor or be an advocate or some kind of support that allowed me to continue in my career. And I got better at it over time, but there was a lot of times when I kind of looked back and said, wasn't it great that, so-and-so was there to coach me or mentor me or to help me? So I kind of carried that early in my career, which then as I progressed through firms and up the ladder and to partner, it was something that really stuck with me. And so coaching was just so important to me as a partner and being involved in the lives of my staff and going through whatever they're going through, whether it be really tough stuff like, miscarriage or divorce or relationship, or if it's regular stuff like client service and billable hours and, bill your damn whip, or whether it was, really soft stuff like just how to be a professional. It just became natural for me as a coach. So I ran a coaching program at a firm for, I don't know if we were at 500, 600 folks in the firm at the time, and built this program with another one of my partners, and I loved it. And it turns out I loved it more than auditing and signing audit reports. And so, back in 2014, I made a significant career change and had some tough conversations with my wife about going from an income of this to an income of this. And fortunately, she bought it. And here we are about a decade later.
I love it. And was it hard to be a coach? I guess early on when you were a partner, oftentimes people reach partner. They, of course, have to have people skills, but they have a clear technical aptitude to reach partner. Was there some moment in your journey where coaching became a priority for you, or you realized how impactful it could be? Because it's quite rare in technical professions, to have this mindset towards coaching.
I had a partner that I worked with, and he was able to review an audit file in just an amazingly short amount of time. So like he would spend like 2% of the budget in his review. And I was always curious, like, how in the hell do you do that? And so I talked to him and he said, well, here's how I review the file. And he opened the file in front of me. He clicked the top, hit shift, hit the bottom, and hit sign off. And he signed the whole thing. I was like, what are you doing? Like, you can't do that. He's like, well, I've developed my team. Like I have mastered leverage. I've mastered coaching my team. I've mastered trusting my team. And he started kind of spewing all this stuff out that I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But what he had gotten to is a level of trust in his team, that they would bring issues to him, that they would be talking to him, communicating to him, telling him everything he didn't know about the engagement before he even touched the file. So by the time he got to the financial statements, he'd already reviewed everything. There was no surprises. And so he found this ability to lever his team through that coaching, through that interest in their development and in their growth. And it blew me away. And I realized the only way I was going to really enjoy public accounting was through leverage. And one of the key ways I could get to leverage was through coaching. So I invested a lot of time in my teams. I got to know them. I helped them. I supported them. I was there with them. And that allowed them to build a relationship with me that I was able to leverage through less billable hours. And so at one point I had a book of, I don't know, between 2 and 3 million of revenue, and my chargeable hours were less than 1,000, which is, kind of crazy, but that's just because I had such good leverage.
So during that time when you were below 1,000 hours of billable time, and I'm assuming profit wise, margin wise, the firm was like, this is still great. I mean, even though you yourself had dropped, they're still viewing this as a success, or else you wouldn't have been able to kind of roll it out more broadly. Do you recall how many people were you managing then, and how much time would you say were you spending on coaching?
At the time I was running the program, so I would probably spend between 500 to 600 hours on coaching in a year.
Okay.
And so I had a number of formal coaches, meaning like I created a system where we were assigning coaches, partners to people. And so I was probably coaching directly maybe 6 to 8 formally. And then there was a lot of mentorship going on around that, of course, and, knocks on the door and can we talk kind of conversations. But as far as managers go, I would probably say I was working with maybe 10 to 15 managers at that time.
Okay. So it's like maybe about 12 hours a week if you would just break it. I mean, that assumes no vacations. I hope you took a vacation then, but it was about
So I had to back up on one thing. So there's this secret in public accounting that no one knows. And it's something I'm trying to get out there, and you're going to help me. It's about being coachable. And there's a thing about partners and a lot of higher ups in public accounting. It gets to a point where they start to lose that growth mindset and they start to get fixed. And the reason why is because there's nothing else above the hierarchy, right? They've spent their whole career like, okay, next thing. And all of a sudden there's no next thing. So they kind of get set in their ways. But with all the disruption that's going on in the industry, PE, AI, pipeline, you name it, that fixed mindset doesn't cut it. And so I was very coachable. And that's why in my experience, I was able to keep my job, is because people said, stop showing up late, stop being a dumbass. And I did. And the people that I've worked with, they learned that if they were coachable, they get promoted quicker, their performance improves, and they become more agile. And that secret isn't out there about being coachable to the partners and the owners too. Like if there's ever a time you need to have a growth mindset in this industry, it's now. Like you've got to be open to change. You got to be open to developing new skills. You got to be, willing to get out of your office and stop just churning returns or reports and creating those advisory relationships, or else AI is going to kick their butt. Like it's so important right now to be coachable. And I think that's what I learned that made me love coaching. And so as long as I can find a coachable client, I'm in great shape because we can do amazing things together. Sorry to interrupt, but I had to get that out.
No, I love it. And when you had a team, I mean, you bring up a really good point. Things only work when you're open to it, when you're coachable. Did you, but sometimes coaching cultures don't exist. So you have to go to your team. You have to maybe articulate that you're going to invest more into coaching. It doesn't mean you're kind of about to go on a PIP. It means that we're trying to help the team and help the firm. So do you have a time where somebody came across as uncoachable and you kind of helped them shift their mindset of what this is going to look like and why it's so important?
I've had times when I've helped and I've had times when I've failed. First of all, in the coachable culture, there's a great white paper that was put out, and it's probably been 6 or 7 years by Amber Setter in California and Sarah Elliott in Texas on coachable cultures. And they actually have a great white paper on how to build one within an accounting firm that the CPA has. And so if anyone listening is interested, check it out. And I'm borrowing from a gentleman in Florida by the name of Jake Weiss, who runs coachability consultants. Coachability tends to be a trait. It's something that people are born with. You're born to be coachable or you're not. You're stubborn in your ways or you're open to change. But it is also a skill that can be developed. And there's training that goes into it, which is, let's practice asking for help. Let's practice accepting feedback. Let's practice seeking it. Let's practice implementing it. Let's practice being humble and vulnerable. Let's practice some of those skills that, frankly, accountants, they struggle with. Accountants aren't known to ask for help a lot. And to your point,
it's a sign you don't know how to do your job.
Weakness, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be the guy that has to walk around and ask people to help me figure out this technical issue or how to deal with this client. I want to figure it out. But I will tell you, to make partner, it's one of the biggest risks that a firm has is promoting a partner that isn't willing to collaborate or ask for help, because they'll get the firm in trouble. They'll make some decisions that they shouldn't make on their own. They won't collaborate. They won't ask whether this is a good idea or not. They'll just go for it.
It's interesting that when you launch a firm or any business, the rate at which you learn is the variable to the speed of success. And so when people ask me, well, what made so and so guest different than other guests that have, were further behind? Sometimes we'll do these interviews and they reached 1 million or 2 million in 18 months, 24 months, and they were just humble implementers of best practices, and they were total sponges of everything in the ecosystem, conferences and podcasts and books. And, it's interesting that it's completely parallel to, what sounds like what makes a great partner,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is they are just constantly absorbing information, and they are very coachable.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it makes a good partnership when the 2 or 3 or 50 or 200 are, knocking on each other's doors and asking for a minute at a time to talk about something that's going on, and wanting to learn. And I learned a long time ago that there's certain technical things that I'm just never, ever going to be good at. And I learned, because I wasn't too smart in some of those things, that I had to ask for help on derivatives or convertible debt or whatever it was. Like, I had to seek guidance, and it just became comfortable to me, to the point where I wasn't attached. I wasn't putting any of my own personal, I don't know, greatness as to whether or not I asked for help or not.
Yeah. To get awkward a little bit, you said that part of coaching is proactively seeking or accepting feedback. But what does, I just imagine this conversation. I'm a manager, I'm a partner. I tell my team we're doing this. We're shifting cultures. We want to do a coachable culture. We want you to level up, and we want to invest in your future. And we need you to then go out and practice seeking feedback and accepting feedback. And the awkwardness, I could imagine, is that at first it's going to come across so painfully scripted, people are going to cringe, frankly, right? So, like, what specifically were you asking your team to say or do to seek out feedback, to be better at accepting feedback? I guess, what were some tactical things that they started to implement, no matter how awkward it may be when you first started?
I would remove the formality. And that's the number one thing. Like, so many of these performance evaluation systems and firms are these formal structures, and no offense to HR, but a bunch of bullshit, that they have to fill out this form. They have to wait until this time. They have until Friday to turn it in. We do it twice a year. We're going to add another one. Oh, and there's a coach that you should meet with every 2 months. And they just build so much formality around it that there's almost like this anarchy in you that revolts against the system. But if instead it's just a question like, hey, we're working on an engagement next week together. Like, what's one thing I could do better? And that wasn't hard. It was easy. And that's seeking feedback. And sometimes we ask the wrong questions, like, how'd it go? And like, what's the number one response you get to that? It's like, oh, it went great. You did great. Good job. Super job. And then, 6 months later, you get the review, and it turns out you sucked, because they were afraid to have that conversation. But it just comes down to removing the formality and learning how to ask the right questions, and being, what are 3 things I could do better at? What would you improve on this engagement next time? If we did the same job next year, what would you want to do different? What's something I'm not doing that you want me to do, or that I am doing you don't want me to do, or that I need to learn and continue to do? Like, it's just the art of being able to create a space that lacks the formality, where someone's worried that they have to fill out a form and go through HR and get it done by Friday and all that crap. It's simple, but we make it complex.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes me think, there's that big push to go from yearly performance reviews to maybe twice a year or quarterly. And I think in most managers' mind, that means like, oh my gosh, you just 4x'd conversations I absolutely dread and don't want to have, right? Because
Right.
it's just a pared down version, but still highly formatted, highly structured quarterly conversations. And again, they may be put on the back burner until the last minute. And then everything is pretty good or generally good, or it has the word good in it. Right. And there's no real coaching there, but it checks the box, and everybody plays management theater, yet another day, and moves on.
Well, paint a picture for a second, and just look at just the partner level, and imagine a firm. This is going to be a big stretch, but imagine a firm where the partners don't get coaching themselves. don't get performance evaluations themselves, don't do performance evaluations for their people, stay in a fixed mindset, close their doors when they go to their office. What kind of tone does that set for those below? It's not one of being coachable. It's not one of asking for help. And then outside of this crazy picture we're painting, compare that to reality and find out it's very much similar. And at the end of the day, my purpose is to improve the experience of public accounting. And that's why I start with the partners. And that's why I try to get as many partners as clients as I can, which again, no easy feat, but I've kept it going this far. But if I can influence the partner, I know that through them, I've just changed the lives of seniors and managers and senior managers and clients just by working with them on whatever it is. And to your earlier point, I have had the question like, am I in trouble? Is that why I'm getting coaching? What I do?
Right.
And my instant response is, are you kidding? Like, I'm your advantage. Like, I'm going to be the thing that stands by you when no one else did and supports you in ways you've never been supported and helps you get places you didn't think you could go, which sounds like a bunch of coach language, right? But it's the
You're
truth.
telling me something. Yeah.
It's the truth. Because once I enter a life and once I start working with someone, it changes from that moment on just because of my presence. I could suck as a coach, but because they have a coach that just boosts their confidence and their ego a little bit, and they might do something they haven't done before. So that partner level is where change happens.
I love that. It made me think of a very, very tactical question for you. And again, I've seen this very dramatically, which is how do you run better one-on-ones? Do you put coaching in one-on-ones? Do you do weekly one-on-ones? How do you ask better questions in one-on-ones? Or do you say ditch those and keep it informal and make it more on the spot than the one-on-one structure?
You need to build a wall and turn that into 4 sides and put a roof on it and put a floor on it. And inside this building we've just built is all the bullshit about the engagement from last week and where the client's at and what their billable hours were and all this stuff that is unrelated to the individual sitting across from you. And leave it in that box for 30 minutes and just have a great conversation like, what's going on? How's it been? Are you happy? What could I do to help you enjoy your job more? What do you enjoy most? What are you missing? What are you lacking? Like just a bunch of great questions. Curiosity is what fuels those one-on-ones. Agendas help, but then it becomes kind of script-like.
Yeah.
But just if you can just inspire curiosity in the coach or the individual having the one-on-one with their peer or with their team, just to be curious about them personally. And you think of books like Leaders Eat Last, and when Simon's talking about just creating that circle of safety and wanting to create a space that your employees feel safe. One-on-one should be that. It shouldn't be an engagement update. But because sometimes partners aren't trained to have those types of conversations, it turns into what they're comfortable with, which is how'd the job go? How's the client? What'd they say? Did you figure out that issue? It's not about them and their personal development. And
have you found a cadence, or do you have a prescriptive cadence? Should it be monthly, biweekly, weekly? What's been the best in your mind? So for my clients, I've got some that are biweekly. The majority are monthly. So I'll work with like 70 partners this month. And most of them, obviously, it's just I can only meet with them once a month. And because I want to leave space in between, because coaching happens outside of the coaching session. Yeah. So like I'll coach and we'll spend a good hour and a half together working on whatever it is. And then I give them homework. They always get some assignments from me of read this, do this, have this conversation. And I got to give them space to exercise that because partners' business, their schedules are crazy. They don't have time to do all these things. And so I usually give a month for the majority of my clients before I circle back. Yeah, but for their direct reports, do you so the people that report up to partners, are they on a monthly one-on-one schedule with
Same thing. Yeah. Give them time to perform. Yeah. Yeah. And it just gives them a chance. And I think partners should be also should be a coach. They should be giving homework. They should be asking the tough questions, setting them loose. That's the expectations. Yeah. And then bringing them back and checking in with accountability. Because that's when you say, did you do those things? And that's I'm sorry, I'm going to go off on a tirade here. There's one thing that just blows my mind in public accounting that they all suck at, and that's setting expectations or holding accountability, and sometimes both. And that, they've got teams that are operating on an engagement, and they may not know the budget. They may not know the deadlines. They may not know what's expected of them in their roles. And then they get slapped with a performance evaluation or a deadline they didn't know about, and accountability comes without the expectation, or vice versa. They have all the expectations, but no accountability. So they just take their time and go longer than they need to because no one's checking. But there's 4 questions to ask. What are you going to do? When are you going to do it by? How will I know you did it? And what will happen if we do or don't do those things? That if firms learn to ask those questions amongst themselves would solve a lot of problems. A lot of coaching wouldn't be necessary.
If that was asked on a weekly basis or some
with your one-on-ones.
Just in the one-on-one, the monthly one-on-ones.
What are you going to do? When will you do it? How will I know? And what will happen if you do or don't do it? And that might be to get something done. It might be to develop something, to take a training, whatever it is in that one-on-one that's pertinent. Creating expectations and accountability will really stick the landing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's because there's such a pressure to, and such a default expectation to just keep executing on client work. So it's like, that's number one. That's what pays the bills. And yeah, if we can figure out other stuff in the meantime, it might vary.
Have you noticed a shift? Have you noticed, and I'm noticing this, and so of course it's a leading question, but I'm noticing a real shift in the amount of BD and new clients that need to be generated in the industry.
I don't have the same visibility into partners. We interview smaller firms, so usually there might be one or two partners. But I will say it's not surprising to me. I think with the rate of M&A and industry shifting and wanting to either live up to valuations or improve to get better valuations, I mean, it's clearly, I could see it happening. Why do you think that is?
Whether it's a one-person band or an orchestra, I'm just, there's a pressure right now in the industry, and you and I can both guess many reasons why, that competition's getting fierce, and there's a pressure for cross-selling advisory services, like there always is, but there's something different. And to your point, it might be the valuation and what that multiple is going to ultimately be, or it might be because they're getting more efficient, they realize they can go upstream or downstream. But I'm noticing just a feeling in a lot of the work, and I work coast to coast, so I get a little bit of spots here and spots there. But there's a shift, and not to say there hasn't been. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, if I say something like that, like things are changing, like, no shit, they've been changing for.
but the trifecta of AI making people more efficient, PE entering, and I mean, even outside of PE, there's just more buyers buying up firms, which is leading to higher valuations. The talent pipeline leading to kind of less folks coming in, which has only accelerated nearshoring or offshoring a lot of entry level folks. And so the cost structure of the firms are probably such that in theory, you should be dramatically more profitable and more efficient. And I think potentially both because you're seeing competition get fiercer, because there are more roll-ups happening than ever before, and you're seeing people around you get acquired, and you're very nervous about what that means for the future of your firm and your clients. But I also think you look around and you say, well, I have 50 people here. This firm probably needs 40 to keep operating now that we've done certain things with nearshoring and AI and whatever. Well, how do we keep them? We have to grow. We have to launch. We have to accelerate advisory services. So it might come out of fear. It might come out of nobility to try to retain as much of the staff as possible. I don't know, but I could see these three factors. And the thing about nearshore offshore, that's been around forever, but I think COVID really blew the roof off of that, because now everybody, even when they returned to office, even as they went hybrid, that just became part of their DNA. That obviously wasn't there prior to COVID. So I think those three things are pushing everybody pretty fast.
Well, there's a couple of things that scare me, and one is the firm, no matter how small or big, that's currently billing some sort of hourly engagement, where they are basing their bills off of hourly. And with the efficiencies that are coming and are here already, just knowing that their revenue is going to start to drop, the better they get at what they do, and not shifting into more of a value-based or some alternative pricing model. That scares me. What scares me is the power that's going to be in these firms' hands once they realize the efficiencies they can have with agentic AI, and they're already figuring it out. And once they realize that they can improve realization from 50 to 60% on engagement without increasing really any cost at all, other than maybe a subscription or what they've developed internally for agentic AI, that scares me. What scares me is what's going on in private industry. And, and not that is your audience, but private accountants that are out there, and they've always been in a cost center. And the CEOs would love nothing better than to find ways to decrease the cost of an accounting to finance department. And lo and behold, we found a reason. What scares me is the pipeline that we've been so worried over. And meanwhile, in that time, we found the offshoring and we found agentic AI. And all of a sudden, pipeline isn't as big of a conversation anymore. And the 150-hour rule, as much attention as it's gotten over the last couple of years, was just a distraction. The number one thing that we have to worry about is the experience of public accounting and improving it so people want in it. And we also have to think about repurposing the people in it, because they are no longer going to be, spending 10 hours a day behind a spreadsheet or a return or a work paper. What are we going to do with you? And I think those conversations aren't happening as much as they should.
Yeah. And it's squeezing, the seniors a lot, where they're getting more work put on them. We had Dom from Big Four Transparency come on, and we just talked about compensation trends and challenges there. And it's like, well, if entry level is if you're cutting off a lot of entry level positions, which would go to mid and eventually senior, so you're cutting off that path on the entry point, then all of a sudden it becomes very, very valuable to be the senior or the senior tax manager, and you're really crunched on that talent war, which seems to be happening. And then PE comes in, and they're going to figure out how to scoop up as many as possible. So,
but also that same level, that senior level, they were staff in COVID, and I've noticed in industry there's a development gap that occurred for that 2-year period. Not to say they weren't getting developed, but they didn't have the same on-the-job training. They didn't have this. Firms didn't know how to train or how to communicate or how to coach in that environment yet. And there's a gap there that exists that's following them along as they move up. And so there's so much pressure and reliance on them to be what historically they've been that they're not yet. And they either need to get more training, more reps, more years experience, whatever, to catch up. But that's plaguing us too. So it's, like I said, what an exciting time to be a part of this industry. It's awesome.
Well, to shift gears a little bit, one of the things you're known for is what you call your pioneer framework in your coaching world. So help us understand, what is the pioneer framework, and can you walk us through those letters?
You're gonna have to back me up on that one. I'm not quite sure where that one came from. That may have been an idea I had a long time ago and forgot, or there may be something. I think it is. I think it's that one. It's not fresh of mind right now.
All right, cool.
I'll tell you about my framework, though.
Yes. Okay. Well, karate chop. Yeah. Go ahead.
I don't have one. I used to have some, and I realized that every time I tried to put something on someone as to how I think it should go, it didn't feel right. And so, when I meet with someone, it starts with maybe how you doing for 30 minutes to understand who they are and what they want. And then when we start working together, I become very, very aggressive towards their goals. And I want to get an understanding of them. I want to see that resonation from them, that's what they want. And then we work on it. And I become the expectation guy and the accountability guy. And depending on who it is, usually when I start a coaching conversation, I have my dial set at like medium. And as I'm working with them, I can decide to turn it up and become more aggressive, or down and a little bit more passive, depending on who they are and what they need. And so I become very, very attuned. I'm close to 10,000 hours coaching CPAs now. So I've gotten a knack at this. So I've become very attuned to the client and what's important to them and what they need, rather than what I project upon them to be needing.
Interesting. Can you give us an anonymized example of a common thing that might surface in your client base? Like, let's kind of walk through a scenario of where they start, and maybe high level how you're helping them navigate through their goals.
So it depends on the flavor. So I'm specific in that I target the executive accountants, but I'm a little bit agnostic as to where they are in industry. So it could be a partner, it could be a managing partner, it could be an owner, it could be a CFO. It could be just an independent Soho, whatever it might be, but it tends to wrap around, in public, it's about promotion, it's about performance, it's about leadership, it's about business development, it's about strategy. For the smaller firms, similar stuff, except no promotion. Performance is big, time management is huge, how to delegate and leverage is huge, business development is usually huge. And then when you get into private industry, it's just more about running a team and learning how to delegate and be a part of that executive team. So those are the common flavors. And I made a chart, and I'm not going to show you because you don't need to see it, but let's just go with the independent accountant. So someone who's a SOHO, small office, home office, there's a lot of price coaching going on. There's a lot of efficiency coaching going on. There's a lot of driving revenue, which is business development, future planning, a lot about just being an owner, the owner mindset set. That's one thing that always bugs me is, there's so many independent accountants out there that haven't taken on that ownership mindset yet. They're still in that technical accountant mindset. That's the stuff.
Yeah, tell me a story of that technical versus owner mindset. How do you help somebody transition, or I guess help me describe a time where you help somebody make that transition?
So the E-Myth is the best route to go, and there's the E-Myth for accountants that came out shortly thereafter, and that's a great read and just showing you that it's one thing to be this entrepreneur, it's another thing to be this owner or versus a technician. So what it really creates is what you usually find is you find someone on a hamster wheel, and you find a public accountant that's just going around and around year after year, more clients, more hours. I hate this. This sucks. Worst busy season ever. Worst busy season ever. Worst busy season ever. And that's evidence that they're in that technician mindset. And so usually what my goal is first of all, stop taking on new clients. Like stop, just stop. And then we have to create intention around everything: growth, strategy, the clients you want to keep, the ideal client, the pricing, the hours, the structure. So, that's kind of my short worded response to that. But I look for those trends of someone who's just so adamant that they want something different, but they continue to behave in ways that are completely against what they want. Like, taking on new clients or being everything to everyone. Have you ever seen Ant-Man?
I have not.
You haven't seen Ant-Man, dude?
I have not seen Ant-Man. I know this was kind of a layup question from you, but I've never seen it. I mean, I'm familiar. I'm familiar with the movie.
All right, I'm going to send you the scene. Right. There's a scene in the movie where Paul Rudd, who's Ant-Man, is working at Baskin Robbins. He's standing behind the counter, and this guy walks in, and he's kind of staring at the menu, and he's looking at Paul Rudd, who works there, and he goes, "I'll just take a hamburger." Paul Rudd's like, Baskin Robbins, we don't have hamburgers. And the guy's like, "Oh, okay, yeah. I'll just take like a hot pretzel." And Paul Rudd's like, "We have ice cream." And he goes, "Okay. I'll just take whatever's hot and fresh." And Paul Rudd's like, "Oh," and he just walks away from the guy. But that's how CPA firms are like. Like I'll have clients come in and be like, "Do you do valuation? Do you do litigation support? Can you do this study? Can you do that?" And the accountant's like, "Yeah, no, I totally do that. I'm sure I can figure that out." Right. And take on that risk. But that's what I look for, is that's someone who's not necessarily owning that ownership mindset. That's someone who's just being that technician and kind of wandering aimlessly through another round of the wheel.
I love it. And I will put Ant-Man on my list.
Yeah, you should.
I don't think that scene spoiled anything for me. No. As we wrap up, I have a couple quick questions. So for somebody who's listening and they feel stuck, what's the first step you would recommend? They're on that hamster wheel and they just feel like, man, nothing's getting better. It's every year is the same.
Well, it's just kind of alluded to. I mean, the first thing is just to set some intentions. And I know that sounds squirrely, vague, stupid, however you want to interpret it, but usually they're working without any sort of an intention, which is, do I want a better client? Do I want a better pricing model? Do I want to work less? Like, waking up to and going to sleep thinking about those intentions and actually making moves. It can be about goal setting. I mean, go buy traction and follow an EOS or whatever you want to do. But at the end of the day, I would want my client just to be self-aware, first of all, that this sucks. This isn't working. I'm not enjoying myself. So self-awareness is first. Then that self-management, which is where intention comes in, to say, I want it to be different, which means I need to stop saying yes to everything. I need to look at my client list. I need to see if the Pareto principle exists here, where 20% of my clients are giving me 80% of my revenue. I need to, create some sort of a vision. I don't need to go 10 years out, because guess what? There's no way you can guess what's going to happen in 10 years, let alone 5, let alone 3. But just come up with something a couple years from now about what you want this to be and what you need to do, reverse engineer that to today and act on it.
I love it. And one thing I also highlight about the Pareto principle is that 20% of your clients could also lead to 80% of your problems. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes it could be more extreme. It could be 10% of your clients.
It's everywhere. Problems. Like once you start looking for it, you're like, holy shit, it is everywhere.
Yeah. I love it. Well, for our audience, how can they best connect with you, chat with you, learn more about what you're up to?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me at CPACoach.com. You can read all about me. I got a bunch of testimonials there. Another place to find me is www.thepracticingaccountant, all one word.com /growing your firm. We put a couple things out there in case any of your listeners want to go out there and check out a little bit of the practicing accountant work. Again, www.thepracticingaccountant.com /growing your firm.
I love it. Well, Doug, thanks for coming on. If you listened to today's interview, you enjoyed today's episode, put a review. It helps us get the word out. If you really enjoyed it, Doug said something that really shifted your mindset, share it. You could text somebody, you can email it. If you share it on social, tag us. We'll further repost it. The best way to just say thank you for getting this information out. As always, we'll link up everything at jetpackworkflow.com/blog. We'll do a full write-up of today's episode and also include the links Doug mentioned. Doug, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Dave. It's been an honor.